Ethan had never expected to find himself on a distant alien world. Far from the quiet life he once knew on Earth, he had joined the exploration corps to see new places and help out with technology problems. Not to get caught up in strange customs. But today, everything changed. Ethan was on his first mission to assist an alien species called the Kivra, a peaceful group known for their advanced technology. His job was simple enough: help them solve a technical issue with their communications system. Everything seemed calm and routine, till he found himself in the heart of Kivra City. The city was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was built in tall, curved towers made of shiny silver material that seemed to shimmer in the light. Trees with glowing blue leaves grew from the side of the towers. The air was sweet, almost like flowers, but with a hint of something metallic. The Kivra people, with their green skin and sharp features, moved about silently, going about their daily tasks. Ethan was walking down one of the main streets, still getting used to the quiet hum of the city, he had been told by his Kivra guide, to meet a technician at the city's central hub for the technical work, but he was early and decided to explore. His boots echoed as he walked down the long corridor of the tower. A few Kivra looked at him with curiosity but didn't stop to speak. He smiled politely, feeling out of place, but excited at the same time. After turning a corner, he came across a door that wasn't on his map. It had no markings, only a simple symbol that looked like a half moon. Ethan, being the curious person he was, decided to take a closer look. Without thinking too much about it, he reached for the door and pushed. It opened. To his surprise, the door didn't open all the way, so he gently nudged it further. That's when he saw her arise. She was standing in front of a mirror, looking at her reflection. Her long flowing hair was still wet, and she was adjusting a piece of clothing that Ethan didn't quite understand. It was not the kind of outfit he was used to seeing on a human, but the way it fit her, the way it was made, all made sense in this alien world. But none of that was what caught his attention. What caught his attention was how she looked. When she turned and saw him, for a moment, time seemed to freeze. She wasn't angry. She wasn't surprised. She just looked at him. Her eyes were a deep shade of violet, filled with curiosity and something else Ethan couldn't quite place. I'm sorry, Ethan stammered, stepping back quickly, his face turning bright red. I didn't mean to. But Eris didn't seem upset at all. Instead, she raised an eyebrow, an amused smile playing at the corners of her lips. You ... walked in on me. Ethan opened his mouth to apologize again, but the words stuck in his throat. He hadn't just walked into any room. He had walked into a private space. And here was this alien woman, not angry, not yelling, just ... calm to calm. I'm so sorry, Ethan said again, this time more slowly. I didn't mean to intrude. I was just exploring. The heiress's smile grew wider, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made Ethan feel like he was being examined. Not with judgment, but with some kind of silent curiosity. In our culture, she began, when someone accidentally walks in during a private moment, it is not an offense. It's a sign. Ethan blinked, his confusion growing. A sign? She replied, her voice calm but firm. A sign that the person who walked in is meant to be a part of something more. It's an invitation. Ethan's mind raced. An invitation? To what? He opened his mouth to say something, but Eris continued. In our species. This is how we know who we're meant to bond with, she explained. When someone sees us in a vulnerable state, it means they are not just a stranger to us. They are someone we should connect with. Ethan didn't know what to say. He had never heard of such a thing before. The idea of walking into someone's room by accident and it being seen as a positive thing was beyond him. But I didn't know, he said quietly, his voice trailing off. I mean, this is a mistake. Eris seemed to understand his discomfort. She nodded slowly, as if considering his words carefully. Yes, it is a mistake. But for us, it's a mistake that brings us closer to someone. I do not believe it is an accident. I think you were meant to be here, Ethan. Ethan was still processing what she had just said. He had thought the Kivra were just another alien species, but their customs were so different from anything he knew. The thought that his simple mistake had caused something so significant felt strange. He didn't even know what he was supposed to do next. Ethan started but didn't finish. He looked away, feeling embarrassed. I didn't mean to interrupt. Eris took a small step toward him, and for the first time since meeting, Ethan, could feel her presence not just as an alien but as a person. There was something about her calm, confident demeanor that made his heart race. He didn't know what was going to happen next, but he had the feeling that nothing would be the same after this moment. "You didn't interrupt," she said softly, her voice like a whisper against the still air. "You've been invited." The words hung between them, and Ethan's mind swirled with confusion, curiosity, and something else. The idea of being invited into someone's life in this way felt both strange and intriguing. Ethan wasn't sure how to respond, but one thing was clear. His mission on this world had just taken a turn he hadn't expected. Ethan stood there, still unsure of what to say, but knowing that his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. Ethan stood there, still processing the strange words that had just come from Eris. An invitation? He felt like he was in a dream. Everything about this situation was unfamiliar. He'd always thought that such a mistake would be met with anger or frustration, but the Kivra had a different view. Eris, noticing his confusion, stepped back slightly. She seemed to sense his hesitation and gave him a kind smile. "You don't have to decide anything now," she said calmly, "but I think you should know more about our customs. It might help you understand what this means." Ethan nodded, still unsure of what he was hearing. "I'd like to understand," he said, his voice quieter now. He had always thought of himself as open-minded, but the idea of being invited into a bond just from an accidental encounter was something he hadn't even considered. He had come here to help, not to get caught in an alien cultural ritual. Eris motioned for him to sit, pointing to a comfortable chair made of some kind of soft, glowing material. She moved toward a small table and gestured for Ethan to join her. As she spoke, she began to explain her people's customs in more detail. "In the Kivra culture," she started, "we believe that every person is connected to another in some way. When you walk into a private moment like this, it's not seen as a mistake, seen as a sign that we were meant to be close. Not necessarily in a romantic way, but in a way that means we should understand each other on a deeper level." Ethan listened carefully, trying to keep his mind open to the idea, even though it felt strange. "So you're saying this wasn't an accident?" he asked, his voice still tinged with disbelief. Eris smiled again. "In our belief, nothing happens without purpose. If you had not walked in, we might never have met in this way. But now, you've been invited into something more." "But I don't know what that means," Ethan said, frowning. "What am I supposed to do now?" Eris looked at him, her violet eyes softening. "There is no one right way, but I think the best thing to do is to get to know each other more. We can talk, and if you're open to it, we can share experiences. In time, you may understand if you feel the same way." Ethan had never imagined something like this could happen. It wasn't like the relationships he had known back on Earth. Things were simple. Their people met, got to know each other, and if there was a connection, they built it slowly. But this was different. Everything was happening so fast. He looked at her, feeling a strange pull in his chest. "And if I don't feel the same way?" he asked, his voice uncertain. Eris's expression remained calm, but her eyes had a hint of sadness. "That's okay too. In our culture, we believe that the bond is mutual. If one person doesn't feel it, there's no pressure. We simply return to our lives and remain respectful. No harm is done." Ethan was surprised by her words. It seemed like the Kivra didn't see relationships the same way humans did. To them, it wasn't about rushing or forcing feelings. It was about understanding and connection, regardless of the outcome. That idea felt foreign to him, but also somehow comforting. He took a deep breath. "I think I need to understand more," he admitted. I don't want to rush into anything. I've never been in a situation like this." Eris nodded, understanding. "We can take our time," she said softly. You're not alone in this. I'll explain as much as I can, and you can ask questions whenever you need. As the hours passed, Ethan and Eris spent the time talking. She explained more about the Kivra, their history, and their culture. The Kivra weren't just a species of advanced technology. They were deeply connected to the world around them. They lived in harmony with their planet, using their knowledge to care for the environment. They believed that every individual had a purpose, and that relationships, whether deep or simple, were part of fulfilling that purpose. For Ethan, it was eye-opening. He had been raised with a more individualistic view of the world where people often put themselves first. The idea that a society could function so differently, placing such value on connection and understanding, was something he hadn't expected. It made him question his own beliefs, but in a way that was exciting, not scary. By the time evening came, Ethan felt more at ease with the idea of staying on the planet a little longer. He wasn't sure where this connection with Eris was leading, but he was beginning to see the possibilities. Still, a small part of him hesitated. He couldn't help but wonder if he was making a mistake. What if he wasn't ready for something like this? What if he didn't feel the same way Eris did? Eris, sensing his internal struggle, leaned forward. "Slightly, you don't have to worry, Ethan," she said gently. "This is not a burden. It's just an invitation to connect, to learn, and to understand each other. There's no pressure." Ethan took another deep breath, his heart still racing from the unfamiliarity of it all. "I just don't want to hurt you," he said quietly. Eris smiled, her eyes full of warmth. "I know you won't. You're here to help, and that's all I've ever asked for." For the first time since arriving on this strange world, Ethan felt like he wasn't alone. There was something in the way Eris spoke to him, the way she was so patient, that made him believe this could work. If only he could understand it fully. As the night grew darker, they continued talking. Ethan could feel himself letting go of his fears, little by little. There was something special about the Kivra, something that was starting to draw him in. Whether it was their culture or simply the connection he felt with Eris, he wasn't sure yet. But whatever it was, he was beginning to feel like he wasn't just on a mission anymore. He was part of something much bigger. Ethan woke up the next morning feeling different. The cool, foreign air of the Kivra planet seemed to carry a new weight. The conversation he had with Eris the night before was still fresh in his mind, and the more he thought about it, the more complicated it seemed. He had come here on a mission to help with a technical issue. But now everything felt uncertain. Eris's words kept echoing in his head. In our culture, when someone accidentally walks in on a private moment, it's an invitation to connect, to bond. He had tried to understand it, but it wasn't easy. How could something so simple, a mistake really, turn into something so significant? Ethan wasn't sure what he was supposed to do next. He wasn't used to having such deep conversations with someone he barely knew, let alone being invited into a cultural practice that was so unlike anything on Earth. After a few hours of wandering around the city, Ethan returned to the small building where he was staying. It was quiet, peaceful, and the only sounds were the soft hum of the planet's natural energy. He decided to clear his mind and focus on his mission, at least for the moment. The Kivra had been waiting for him to assist with their communication issue. He couldn't forget why he was here in the first place. But as he sat at his work table, trying to focus on the technical problem in front of him, his thoughts kept drifting back to Eris. He had never met anyone like her before. Her calm presence, her intelligence, and her beauty, all of it made Ethan feel like he was in a dream. The thought of becoming closer to her, of understanding more about the Kivra culture, was both exciting and overwhelming. It wasn't long before there was a soft knock at the door. Ethan stood up quickly, his heart beating faster than he expected. When he opened the door, Eris stood there, a gentle smile on her face. She wore a simple, elegant robe that flowed around her, her violet eyes meeting his with a mixture of curiosity and understanding. "Good morning, Ethan," she greeted him in a calm, pleasant voice. "How are you feeling today?" Ethan smiled, but there was still a trace of uncertainty in his expression. "Better, I think," he said, trying to sound casual. "I've been thinking about what you said, about your culture and the invitation." Eris nodded, stepping inside without waiting for a response. "I know it's a lot to take in, but I'm glad you're thinking about it. It's not something we talk about often with outsiders. But for us, this is an important part of how we connect with others. Ethan leaned against the desk, still unsure. I don't know if I'm ready for something like that. I mean, this is all so new to me. Eris turned to face him, her eyes filled with understanding. I know it's difficult. But remember, this doesn't have to be rushed. We don't expect anything right away. The connection will come when it's right for both of us.
Ethan
Felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Her words were calm, reassuring. It was clear that she wasn't trying to pressure him into anything. She just wanted him to understand her people's customs and decide for himself if he was open to it. Never met anyone like you, Eris, Ethan said quietly. I don't even know how to begin to understand this. This bond you're talking about? Eris smiled softly. It's not about understanding everything all at once. It's about being open. It's being with someone without judgment. Right. Where it starts. Ethan was silent for a moment, taking in her words. He had always believed that relationships took time to grow, to form. But here in the Kivra culture, things felt different. Everything seemed to be about connections, about knowing someone on a deeper level. Beyond physical attraction, back on Earth, people usually take time to get to know each other first. There's always this build-up before anything serious happens, Ethan said, trying to explain his own perspective. Eris nodded thoughtfully. I understand, and I respect that. But we don't believe in waiting for the perfect moment. We believe in creating connections as soon as possible, because life is short, and opportunities don't always last. We connect when we feel it's right, and we accept that not every connection will last forever. Ethan considered her words carefully. The Kivra approach seemed more open, less cautious than what he was used to. But there was something freeing about it. The idea that a connection didn't have to be perfect, that it could just be, was new and strangely appealing. I guess I'm just worried about rushing into something I'm not ready for, Ethan admitted. You don't have to rush, Ethan, Aris replied gently. There's no timeline for this. We'll go at the pace that feels right for you. The bond may grow slowly, or it may grow quickly. Either way, it will be our choice. For the first time, Ethan felt truly at ease. He wasn't being pushed into something he didn't want. He wasn't being asked to make a decision right away. The freedom to choose at his own pace was something he could get used to. All right, Ethan said, nodding. I think I'm ready to see where this goes. I don't want to miss the chance to learn more about your world, ... and you. Eris's smile widened, and she stepped closer to him. That's all I ask. We'll take it slow, one step at a time. And no matter what happens, we'll always respect each other's choices. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest as he looked. At her, she was unlike anyone he had ever known. Her openness, her calm, and her willingness to let things unfold naturally made him feel safe. This was a chance he didn't want to miss. As they sat down together to continue their conversation, Ethan realized that he had made the right choice. The journey he had started on this planet was no longer just about completing a mission. It was about discovering something new, not just about the Kivra culture, but about himself and the kind of connection he was willing to explore. The next few days passed in a haze for Ethan. He was still processing everything that had happened with Eris, trying to understand her people's customs and his place within them. It wasn't just about the technical issues he had come here to solve anymore. It was about something deeper, something personal. Ares had given him space, allowing him to think things through, while still being there when he needed her. Every time they spoke, he felt more drawn to her. Her calm presence was something he had never experienced before. There was no pressure, no rush, just a quiet understanding that they were both exploring something new together. Ethan spent his time working on the communication system for the Kivra, but his mind often wandered back to Eris. They had talked more about the Kivra's culture, how they didn't believe in waiting for perfect moments, how they valued connections over everything else. The more he learned, the more fascinated he became by the simplicity and depth of their way of life. One afternoon, after finishing his work for the day, Ethan found himself walking through the city's central plaza. The sun was low in the sky, casting a warm golden light across the landscape. He walked slowly, taking in the beauty of the place. The buildings were tall and sleek, their surfaces shimmering in the light. Strange, glowing plants lined the walkways, and the air smelled sweet like fresh flowers. The Kivra people moved about quietly, going about their daily routines. Ethan couldn't help but notice how peaceful everything seemed. As he walked, he noticed a familiar figure in the distance. It was Eris. She was standing near one of the glowing plants, her hands gently brushing the leaves. She looked up when she saw him approaching, a soft smile appearing on her face. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice carrying across the quiet plaza. "I'm glad you came. I wanted to show you something." Ethan smiled back, feeling a mix of curiosity and excitement. "What is it?" Eris stepped aside, revealing a small courtyard hidden behind a row of glowing trees. It was a peaceful, secluded space, unlike anything Ethan had seen in the city. The ground was covered in soft green moss, and the air was thick with the scent of flowers. In the center of the courtyard was a small pool of water, its surface perfectly still. Eris walked toward it and gestured for Ethan to follow her. "This is a place where the Kivra come to reflect," Eris explained, her voice calm and gentle. "It's a sacred space for us. We come here to think, to clear our minds, and to connect with our world." Ethan took a few steps closer, his eyes taking in the serene surroundings. He felt a sense of calm wash over him, as though the quiet beauty of the place was soothing his restless thoughts. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "I've never seen anything like it." Eris smiled, her eyes softening. "I'm glad you like it. I come here often to think about things about my life, about the connections I want to make. It's a place where I can just be." Ethan nodded, understanding. He had always been the kind of person who needed time alone to think, to process his thoughts. But he had never experienced a place quite like this. It was as though the very atmosphere invited you to pause and reflect, to let go of all the distractions of the world. "I think I understand now," Ethan said slowly. "About your people's customs, I mean. It's not about rushing into things. It's about making a real connection when it feels right." Eris turned to face him, her violet eyes meeting his, with an intensity that made his heart skip a beat. "Exactly. We believe that every connection, no matter how big or small, has meaning. Not about whether it's perfect or not. It's about being open, being honest, and being present." Ethan's mind raced as he processed her words. Everything she said made so much sense, but it still felt so foreign to him. Back on Earth, people were so focused on achieving goals, on getting things done. Relationships, even friendships, took time and effort to build. But here it was different. The Kivra seemed to understand the value of moments, the importance of being fully present with someone, even in the quietest of spaces. "Do you ever worry about the connections you make?" Ethan asked, his voice a little hesitant. "I mean, what if you don't feel the same way about someone?" Iris smiled softly, a knowing look in her eyes. "It happens sometimes, but that's okay. We don't see connections as a contract. If one person doesn't feel the same way, we simply acknowledge it and move forward. We don't hold on to things that aren't meant to be." Ethan felt a sense of relief. There was something so freeing about the way Eris spoke about relationships. It was as though she wasn't afraid of getting hurt or losing someone. She understood that life was about making the most of the time you had, not forcing things to work when they weren't meant to. "You make it sound so simple," Ethan said with a laugh. Eris laughed softly as well. "It's not always simple, but it's what works for us. We don't need to complicate things with expectations. We just let them happen." Ethan stood there for a moment, taking in her words. He had been so focused on the idea of getting everything right, of following the rules he had been taught about relationships. But maybe Eris was right. Maybe it wasn't about following rules at all. Maybe it was about being present, being open, and letting things unfold in their own time. He turned to her, feeling something shift inside him. "I think I'm starting to get it," he said quietly. Eris smiled, her eyes warm and gentle. "I'm glad." For the first time since arriving on this planet, Ethan felt like he was truly understanding something important. It wasn't just about the Kivra's customs. It was about his own journey, about learning to connect with others in a way that felt real and genuine. He didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time he was ready to find out. As the sun began to set, casting a soft, golden glow over the courtyard, Ethan felt a sense of peace he hadn't expected. He didn't have all the answers yet, but he was no longer afraid to explore what lay ahead. With Eris by his side, he knew that whatever came next, he would face it with an open heart. Ethan had been on the Kivra planet for over a week now, and his feelings were more confused than ever. He had come here to help with a technical issue, but now everything felt different. The quiet moments he shared with Aris, the deep conversations about her people's customs, and the calm beauty of the planetet was all beginning to change how he saw the world and himself. Every day he spent time with Eris, working on the Kivra's communication system during the day and in the evenings. They'd sit together and talk. It wasn't just about learning the Kivra culture anymore. It was about something else, something deeper. As the days passed, Ethan found himself growing more comfortable in her presence. He wasn't sure if it was the atmosphere of the planet, the openness of the Kivra, or just Eris herself, but he felt a connection with her that he had never experienced before. It was strange, but also comforting. In a way, it felt natural. One evening, as they walked through the city after another long day of work, Eris turned to Ethan with a thoughtful expression. "I've noticed something," she said, her voice soft but serious. "You seem more at ease now. I think you're starting to understand our way of life." Ethan glanced at her, surprised. "I think I am," he admitted. "It's different from what I'm used to, but ... it makes sense. Don't force things. Just let them happen, and it feels ... natural." Eris smiled, a glint of approval in her eyes. "It's exactly it. Sometimes we don't realize how much we're holding on to until we let go. Life doesn't have to be complicated, Ethan. It's about being open to what comes next." Ethan nodded, absorbing her words. He had always been the type to plan everything, to make sure everything was in order. But now, he was starting to see the value in letting go of control and just experiencing the moment. With Eris, everything felt different. He didn't have to worry about making the right decision every second. He could just be as they walked. They came across a small park near the edge of the city. The park was quiet, with soft lights glowing from the trees and a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. It was peaceful, and it felt like the perfect place to stop for a while. Ethan sat down on a bench, looking out over the park. The stars were beginning to twinkle in the sky, and the air was cool but not uncomfortable. It was a peaceful moment. And for the first time since arriving on the planet, Ethan felt truly relaxed. Eris sat next to him, her presence warm and reassuring. She didn't speak right away, just letting the silence settle between them. It wasn't awkward. It was just comfortable, like they didn't need words to understand each other. After a few moments, Eris broke the silence. "Ethan," she said softly, "I know you've been thinking a lot about what happened between us." "About the invitation." Ethan looked at her, his heart beating faster. He hadn't expected her to bring it up, but he was glad she had. "I have," he admitted. "I've been trying to understand it all, but it's not easy." "Never been in a situation like this before?" Eris nodded, her eyes steady on his. "I understand. It's not the same as what you're used to. But remember, it's not about rushing into anything. It's about connection, and connection takes time. There's no need to force anything. We'll go at the pace that feels right for us." Ethan looked down at his hands, trying to gather his thoughts. The idea of forming a connection without any clear rules or expectations was strange to him. Back on Earth, everything was about timelines, about building relationships step by step. But here, it felt like Eris was offering him a chance to just be, without the pressure of having to figure everything out in one moment. "I think I'm starting to understand," he said slowly, his voice thoughtful. "I've spent so much time focusing on the right steps, the right moves, that I forgot to just live in the moment. With you, I feel like I can just ... be." Eris smiled softly, her expression gentle. "That's all we ask for, Ethan. To be present with each other. There's no pressure, no timeline. We just let things happen." Naturally, Ethan felt his heart relax at her words. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he had to have all the answers. He could just take it one step at a time, trusting that whatever happened would unfold as it was meant to. Eris turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the soft glow of the stars. "You don't have to decide anything right now," she said, her voice calm. "But if you're open to it, I'd like to see where this connection could go. There's no rush, no expectations. We can just see what happens." Ethan looked at her, feeling a warmth spread through him. He had never imagined that something so simple could feel so significant. With Eris, everything felt different, calmer, easier. There was no pressure, no fear of making the wrong choice. He was allowed to just be. "I think I'd like that," he said quietly, his voice filled with honesty. "Not sure where this will go, but I'm willing to see what happens." Eris's smile widened, and for a moment the world around them seemed to fade away. There was only the quiet park, the soft breeze, and the two of them, sitting together in this peaceful moment. "You don't have to have all the answers, Ethan," she said softly. "Sometimes the best connections happen when we least expect them." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. He didn't need to have everything figured out. All he needed to do was be present, to be open to whatever came next. And with Ares by his side, he knew that whatever happened, it would be worth exploring. As the night grew darker, stars shining brighter in the sky, Ethan felt a sense of calm settle over him. He didn't have all the answers, but he was beginning to understand that maybe that was okay. Some things didn't need to be planned out. Sometimes you just had to let go and let life unfold. And in that moment, Ethan was ready to take the next step into the unknown, whatever it might bring. The following days felt different for Ethan. There was a calmness in the air, a sense of ease he hadn't experienced in a long time. It wasn't just because he was on a different planet, surrounded by alien technology and customs. It was because of Eris. With her, everything seemed simpler, more natural. He had stopped overthinking everything, and that made all the difference. Ethan and Iris spent more time together, working on the communication system for the Kivra and talking about life. Their conversations grew deeper, more meaningful. Ares was patient with him, always willing to explain her people's ways. But she never pushed him to understand everything right away. They just let things unfold. One evening after another day of work, Ares invited Ethan to a special plaza spot that the Kivra considered sacred. She had told him about it before, and now she wanted to show him in person. "I think it's time you see this," she said with a soft smile. Leading him through the city, they walked through the quiet streets, the glow from the buildings casting a gentle light around them. The air was cool, but not uncomfortable. Ethan could hear the soft hum of the city, but it wasn't loud or distracting. It was as if everything in this place was designed to be calm, to make you feel at peace. They arrived at a large, open space, surrounded by tall trees with glowing leaves.
Ow.
The trees were unlike anything Ethan had seen on Earth's tall, slender and glowing with soft blue and green lights. The ground beneath them was covered in a thick, soft grass that seemed to shimmer as they walked across it. "This is a sacred space for the Kivra," Ares explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's where we come to reflect, to think, and to reconnect with our world. It's a place of peace." Ethan looked around, his eyes wide with wonder. The atmosphere here was different from anywhere else he had been. It felt serene, like time slowed down in this place. He could feel his worries melting away, replaced by a calm that he hadn't felt in years. Eris walked to the center of the space and turned to face him. "I wanted to bring you here because this is where we make important decisions," she said softly. "This is where we reflect on what we truly want and what we need. It's not about rushing. It's about taking the time to understand yourself and the world around you." Ethan nodded, understanding the importance of the place. "It's beautiful here," he said, his voice filled with awe. "I can see why it's special to you." Ari smiled, her eyes softening. "I come here often when I need to think about the connections I've made, or the ones I want to make. It's a place where I can just be with myself." They stood there in silence for a moment, the only sound being the soft rustling of the glowing leaves in the wind. Ethan felt like he could stay here forever, just breathing in the peaceful atmosphere. He didn't need to think about anything else. In this moment, everything felt right. After a while, Eris turned to him, her expression serious but kind. "Ethan, I know you've been thinking a lot about our bond and what it means. I want you to know that there's no pressure. If you're not ready for something more, that's okay. But if you are, if you feel a connection, I want you to know that I'm here. I'm not asking for anything more than your honesty." Ethan looked at her, his heart beating a little faster. He had never been in a situation like this before. Back on Earth, relationships took time to develop. There were expectations, rules, and steps to follow. But here with Eris, it felt different. It felt like they could just be themselves without any of the pressure. "I'm not sure what I'm ready for, Aris," Ethan said honestly, his voice a little unsure. "But I know that I'm here, and I want to see where this goes. I've never felt this kind of connection with anyone before. I'm just trying to understand it." Eris smiled, a look of understanding in her eyes. "It's all I ask. We can take our time. There's no rush." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of relief. He didn't have to have all the answers right now. He didn't have to know everything about their bond or what the future held. All he needed to do was be present, to be open to the possibility of something more. They sat down together on the soft grass, peaceful surroundings wrapping around them like a gentle embrace. Eris spoke quietly about the Kivra's beliefs, about their view of relationships, and how they believed that true connections were built on understanding and mutual respect. It wasn't about following a set of rules or meeting certain expectations. It was about sharing a space, being open with each other, and allowing the connection to grow naturally as the evening wore on. As the stars above them began to shine brighter, and the soft hum of the city in the distance became a comforting background, Ethan felt at peace. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't worried about the future or what came next. He was simply enjoying the moment, enjoying the connection he was beginning to feel with Eris. "I think I'm starting to understand," Ethan said after a long pause. This is different from anything I've known, but it feels right." Eris smiled, her eyes warm. "I'm glad you're beginning to see it. There's no right or wrong way to connect with someone. It's about being real, being honest, and allowing things to unfold in their own time." Ethan looked at her, a sense of clarity washing over him. He didn't need to rush into anything. He didn't need to have all the answers. He just needed to be present to let the connection with Eris grow at its own pace as they sat there, surrounded by the glowing trees and the peaceful sounds of the planet. Ethan knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened next, he was ready to face it. With Eris by his side, he felt like he could take on anything. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly free.